joins me now. Congressman, why is it so important to talk to Congressman McCarthy?
Well, McCarthy, by his own admission, was on the phone with the president on January 6th. And as Liz Cheney said, trying to get the president to intervene and stop the violence. And yet the president did nothing for such a long time. McCarthy has said, sometimes in kind of a self-serving way, what he said in that conversation. He's told others. But he hasn't really said what the president's response was. And of course, that's vital to know what the president's actions were, what his inactions were, what his state of mind was. So there are few people that could speak to that better than McCarthy or Trump. That's why he's a key witness.
What do you make of, what is your response to his announcing he won't cooperate with the inquiry?
Look, it's not that surprising, even though he pledged that he would cooperate, that he would testify, because, he has been engaged in trying to cover for President Trump. Practically since the insurrection, there was that few days immediately after the attack on the Capitol where he was laying blame on Trump, but very soon he was down at Mar-a-Lago begging forgiveness. And ever since, he's been part of that effort to sweep this entire attack under the rug. So it's not surprising, hoping or wishing that he were an honorable and courageous person. There's little chance of that ever happening. That's just not who he is. But nonetheless, he is a key witness. We'll have to figure out now what to do about him.
Well, I mean, I guess you're not going to get out ahead of the committee, but we are in interesting legal and sort of constitutional frontier here about compelling testimony from a fellow member of Congress for congressional inquiry. As far as I know, that hasn't happened. We haven't seen subpoenas for that kind of thing. How do you think about it?
Well, the last time this came up was during the Russia investigation when it was chaired by Devin Nunes. There were two House members with pertinent information, one Democrat, one Republican. We asked them to come in. They both said yes. They both did their duty. But now we have McCarthy and others refusing to do their duty. The way I look at it, we have certain remedies potentially with McCarthy, with Perry, with Jordan, with other House members that we don't have with a Steve Bannon, for example, or Mark Meadows. That is because the House can control its own members, can discipline its own members. So there are other options than the criminal contempt route. We haven't decided on what options to use, but there is an ability of the House to essentially police its own that we'll have to consider.
That is interesting. I had not thought of that, but that's a good point. You do have subpoenas that have been issued now for a few of the big tech firms, which is interesting. I think there had been channels of communication for voluntary cooperation and production. I guess those have broken down. I think it's Meta and Google and Twitter and Reddit. Why do you feel those subpoenas are necessary? What are you looking to get from these tech companies?
Sadly, they were necessary. We have been trying for weeks and months to get information from these companies about the use of those platforms to organize the attack, the use of those platforms to spread the big lie, and other items that are very pertinent to our investigation. And frankly, it's been pulling teeth to get the relevant documents from these companies. From Meta, for example, we've been trying to get information about their shutting down of the committee they had established on civic integrity, and the shutting down of that after the election and the repercussions as a result of that. And my sense, frankly, from the document production of these companies is they're sharing with us what they think we already have or what they think we already know. But we know there's other material out there, and we've lost patience, and we're now going to require them to provide it.
All right, Congressman Adam Schiff,